Gold plating in cosplay. In this economy? Yes. I already built Paragon Valkyrie's helmet from Rainbow Six Siege, and it has animatronics, LEDs, and instead of paint I used actual real gold to get a perfect metallic shine. Today though, I'm working my way down and building the neo-gothic beauty that is her shoulder armor.
Fusion. No, this kind. Our journey starts here. I model everything out over a few days, and this gives me a better understanding of how large this project really is. Even though I altered the proportions a little bit for a more masculine look, I want the armor to be still as accurate as possible, so I'll be using a lot of 3D printing. And the metal looking parts will have to be gold plated just like the helmet, so everything would match. But before I can gold plate these parts, I need to form a layer of copper and nickel, so that's where I start. Electroplating is a process where you deposit actual metal on a part, and different metals adhere to each other differently. So for gold, I start with a very thick layer of copper, about 12 hours per wing blade. Such a long plating time introduced the formation of these crystals, which I took care to remove without ruining the underlying layer. At this point, because it's such a thick layer of copper, the pieces feel almost like solid metal when you're handling them, but they're not, so I don't go too crazy and work slow and steady. After all the careful sanding, I finish the parts by polishing them with 3 different compounds for the finest finish possible. My thinking is I can always add scratches and dirt later, but it's not going to be possible for me to make the part perfect after the fact. This wing blade was just dipped in acid in preparation for nickel plating. You can tell by the rich color and the screams. Acid eats away any contamination, so the nickel will have an easier time growing on the copper. Without a nickel in-between layer, gold would just diffuse into the copper, so it is very important to get this right. Because the gold layer is going to be so thin, all of the polishing needs to be done beforehand. These were shaping up real well, so once I finished shining them, I tossed the parts into the ultrasonic bath for a good scrub, and yeah. So I took out the parts from the ultrasonic bath, and 3 out of 7 are all peeled away. And this is a complete do-over. Having pretty much half of my work go to waste nearly at the last step was rough. I tried scrubbing and polishing to remove the nickel for a fresh try, but I couldn't get rid of all of it, and in any case I didn't know what contaminated in the first place. So I started from scratch. It was quite a setback, but it is what it is. The chest medallion thing was the next thing on the list. Because of the symmetry and the relatively small size, it was both quite easy to model and to print. This time I electroplated a thinner layer of copper. I didn't want the windows to grow smaller, which would affect the fitment of the gemstone inlays. It was nice focusing on a single part for once, and the result really speaks for itself. I couldn't help myself and wanted to see this through, so I decided to not wait and gold plate it also. Bit by bit, gold ions in the solution turned back into atoms with the help of electricity, forming a pure gold layer on top of the nickel, like magic. It turned out so well that I decided to gold plate the wing blades in the same go, so I did. Wing blades on the chest buckle aside, there's also those shells on the chest, and I plate those too. I like hiding little Easter eggs in my cosplays. With most of the metal parts now done, I moved on to the rest of the wing assembly. These wing blade holders are hollow for electronics, and they have wire paths for LEDs in the blades and mounting holes. I wet sand them and paint them in gloss black, and then I airbrush them to match the helmet. The parts in between the blade holders kinda look like an accordion, so I printed them in this foaming TPU. The end result is something between rubber and foam, which is exactly what I need here. I hadn't worked with it before, so I was putting all my eggs in a single basket, but as you see, it looks spot on and is perfectly flexible. The glowing bits change from reference to reference, but one thing is for certain, they glow and they're animated. I print out these aqua gem-like inlays. They're quite clear, so to improve their light diffusion, I sand their tops and bottoms. I get the stained glass effect of the little windows just like I did on the helmet. Silver spray paint and sanding it back down. Same methods mean consistency between parts. Speaking of between the gold wing blades there are these shorter black spikes. Those I also resin print. They and the rest of the components are attached to some sort of a surface, and for durability and authenticity, I'm going for thick core leather. There are two parts, the upper one that will hold the blades, and the lower part that will wrap around the shoulder. I really dislike permanently attaching things that might need repairing, so I designed these parts to be bolted together. The lower layer can't stay perfectly flat as it needs to follow my shoulder shape, so I wet shape it a bit. I keep the top flap bolted so the distances between mounting holes don't change. I put it aside to dry a little bit and begin decorating the upper layer. A lot of these details will be either invisible or covered, but for completeness I do want to add them, cause in the sketches you do see some edge lines. For edges I'm using gum tragacanth. It's this natural material used to make edges of belts and whatnot nice and slick. It will make the armor look way more complete. Then a bit of fat to make the leather supple and shiny, and dare I say, it's assembly time. Each blade is fastened with 2 bolts, and alignment is key to keep the wire channel across parts continuous. I'm using bolts with large truss heads, so there would be no chance of them working their way out of the holes. At this unfinished state, the top assembly is a bit fragile, so I'm taking my time here. Once everything is in place, I glue in the inlays, which add a lot of strength, making the entire blade part a solid unit.
Probably should have done it before.
Because of the limited space in the chest part, to make the light as smooth as possible, I paint the insides white. This will hopefully help bounce the light instead of absorbing it. The part underneath will hold the LEDs and connect all 3 straps, so it has to be quite strong. I print it in 100% infill, sand it, and paint it for the same light diffusing reasons. Off camera I already dialed in the strap lengths, so now it's just a matter of stitching everything together.
The electronics took way longer than I expected. Even though the parts are hollow, there's not enough space to hide any excess wiring, so everything needed to be trimmed and soldered in place, and there are a lot of LEDs.
Each wing blade is its own segment, which permits really advanced animations, but that's at the expense of really complicated wiring. But it's just one of those things. I think it's just worth not cutting corners and bringing the project to the next level. As usual, some last-minute weirdness to freak me out, but it was just the laptop not outputting enough current, and then I glued down the diffusers. With most of the electronics in place, I slot in the stained glass windows for the first and hopefully the last time, and man, even in a bright room they just look so good. I'm really happy that I went with 2 LED strips per holder. The shoulder strap appears to be wrapped in leather, so that's what I do. It will also serve as a wire channel on the backside for the chest buckle LEDs, so win-win. With the wire routed and trimmed to length, I am finally able to glue down the top part to the base, and that's it. Or is it? At this point, I just figured I'll just make the other shoulder armor too. I mean, it doesn't have crazy electronics or animations, like how hard can it really be? I've made armors before, but the issue with this one is that it's a huge single piece that needs electroplating, and this massive increase in scale is just a fun little twist for me to deal with. Just look at all the fun I'm having. I wanted to keep the piece upright and flat against the anode, but it didn't fit, so I had to lay it flat and move the anode around so the copper layer thickness would be even. It made the process a bit more involved, but the layer grew smooth and thick. To match all the other pieces, I need to put in a similar amount of work. I don't go too overboard with the polishing and leave a few imperfections on purpose to make the surface look a bit more realistic. I don't want that fake plastic Christmas decoration look. I learned from the copper plating step and got myself a proper sized vessel for this witch's brew. The nickel layer is purely decorative, so it didn't take that long to deposit. These 2 stripes look like they're different colors, so I mask them off and gold plate the shoulder armor around it, kind of how you would do it with paint. I focus on the edges to build up a thicker layer of gold that would not wear through. It takes some time, but after a gentle wipe down, we get to see the largest piece of jewelry I now own.
Man.
It's kinda crazy to think that a few days ago this was just a model on my screen. The inner pieces and spacers are also 3D printed, and those are the parts that have the attachment points. And the egg yolk in the middle there is also attached with bolts. This armor will attach to the harness with a strap over my shoulder and wrap around my arm with some leather flaps. I water shape them a bit and also add the matching details. To make the surface a bit more interesting, I also hammer in these flower marks. I think the spiky design kind of matches the helmet. Behind the scenes, I model, print and plate these buckles that now I sew into the webbing. In the reference, we see some purple accents around the buckle, so I stitch on a purple ribbon on that part of the webbing. It's unclear what it is, but I did not want to skip it. With the fitment dialed in, I stain the leather and finish the edges. Can you even say that you care about your project if you don't massage oil into it? Everything is attached with bolts for repairs, but the ones on the buckles are purely decorative. Speaking of decorative, the bottom part of the armor looks like it has some sort of an inlay, and to me it looks like leather or something and engraved or embossed, so I laser cut a perfectly fitting leather flap with these little wing details on each side. A few more bits here and there, and now both sides of the shoulder armor are complete. Man, did it feel good to finally wear everything together. It's actually decently balanced. I'm really happy that I made the right armor also, because it prevents the wing blades from sliding around too much. The metal bits are just so shiny, you can definitely see the hours of work behind them. I will probably need to weather them a bit to make them a bit more worn in, but for now, I'm just enjoying how they look even in the dark. One of the defining features of a great cosplay piece is when it looks good from afar, but also stands up to scrutiny up close. While building, I was a bit worried that I made the shoulders a bit too small for my frame, but now with everything together, I think it looks good and eye-catching from a distance, especially with the lights and everything, and up close I think there is enough detail for you not to call it plain and boring. I skipped over the programming of the animation, but as you see there are these color shifting gradients happening and a staggered meteor animation washing down each blade, which makes the wings look a bit more eye-catching than they do in the trailer in my opinion. Looking back, if I were to build this again, I would either omit electroplating or find a quicker way to achieve similar results. The armor turned out really well and I'm happy with it, but sadly it just took so many weeks of work and I learned a lot, but this level of effort was really hard to sustain. It's almost as if overcomplicating things makes things overcomplicated. Who knew? That being said, no paint would ever come close to this look, and there are some bragging rights in saying, oh yeah, my armor is gold-plated. And that's pretty much all I have for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you do, because there's going to be more similar videos coming out soon. And yeah, thank you for watching. And I'll see you next time.